Welcome back to Tabletop Titans for another epic Codex review. My name is Adrian, and I'll be guiding you through the brand new Aeldari Codex from Games Workshop. Of course, a big thank you to Games Workshop themselves for sending us this Codex in advance for us to review. I am extremely excited to be talking about all the detachments in here. I am a longtime Aeldari player. It was one of my very first armies when I started playing back in 4th edition. And of course, I've really grown to love them, in particular, the Harley Quinns, which are back in a big and beautiful way, and I could not be more pumped. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through the book. We're going to cover all of the core rules, the different detachments, the enhancements, the stratagems, all that stuff. I will show you the Crusade section so that those of you who are rocking and rolling on Crusade can get all the information that you're interested in. And we will look briefly over the Combat Patrol just to see what might come in the box. With that, of course, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And in particular, let me know if I missed anything. This is a massive book. You can see it's a hefty tome, rivaling even the Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines. So there's a lot to get into. With that, let's do this thing. All right, so let's first off open up the book. And I like to flip through some of the art and just kind of see what's going on in here. Always really cool to see what they've got going on. Classic. This was 5th edition Eldar, I want to say. Very cool. We've got the Eldar Pantheon, some lore behind that. I recommend checking it out. I love all the lore behind this. You notice talk of Drukhari and sort of their breaking off of the Eldar. And in fact, they are in this book as well in the form of the Yari Drukhari. So that's cool, looking at the different paths that they have, explaining what craft worlds are with some really cool art. There aren't really any craft world rules here in 10th edition, but you get a bit of that flavor, and of course it can help determine your paint scheme. So hashtag BLTan is best tan. A sermon, old art for a new model. Banshees, Jane Czar, Baharoth. We've got Mr. Fuegan himself. Lycus, the brand new Phoenix Lord. Rockin' and rollin' for the War Spiders. Malgan Ra. Karandris, shockingly absent from this book. We got a new Phoenix Lord. We lost another one. He's not canonically dead. I've read through all the lore here to see. So I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe a new model in the future. Maybe he's involved in some of the story that's going to be coming out soon. I have no idea. But he is not in this book. There are no rules. Again, just going through the massive panoply of different units that you have. This art is really sick. So cool. This is talking about like the Corsairs, the Harley Quinns, the coolest, and the Yari, of course. So like the different branches of Eldar. Sick models, the Avatar, looking good. Gosh, this book is just massive. Look at this. This is all just like art stuff, art treatments. Love me some Harley Quinns. Eldrad, looking pretty exciting in the new book. We can see now finally the the Aspect Warriors complete. We got the Shining Spears on a different page. So spicy and dicey. Okay, so Combat Patrol. This is the new Combat Patrol box. Looks like you get a Spirit Seer. You get 5 Wraith Guard, which they have built as Wraith Blades. 5 of the brand new Warp Spiders, and 10, so 2x5 of the classic plastic Dire Avengers. So it looks like a great box, honestly. Excited to pick it up. Some painting guides in here. Some rules for the Combat Patrol. For those who are interested, there you have it. Kaigaril's Protectors. And the different profiles for them. Here, I'll show you the other half real quick. Boop. There we are. And then we can dive on in to the main rules. Okay, so first off, when the Eldar launched in the beginning of 10th edition, they had, of course, the Fate Dice. Very contentious army rule, even to this day. Very hard to balance, very powerful. The moment you can take dice rolling out of a dice game, you kind of break the game, right? So very excited to announce that, as they did on Warhammer Community. That is now replaced with Battle Focus, which really represents like the mobility of all the various Eldar. I think it's a much better design ability, and it's fun, it's flavorful, and powerful. So the way this works is, if your army faction is Asuryani, at the start of the battle round, you get a number of Battle Focus tokens based on the battle size. So in a 2,000 point game, you get 4 Battle Focus tokens. And each time one of the triggers below occurs, you can spend a Battle Focus token to enable the relevant eligible unit to perform the Agile Maneuver. You can't have one unit do 2 maneuvers in the same phase, so you can't stack them. And generally, you cannot use the same agile maneuver in the same phase unless they state otherwise. And then at the end of the round, any unspent battle tokens are lost, and then you reset next round. So you're getting 4 in a 2K game. These are awesome. Let me walk through them. So first one, Swift as the Wind. This happens when an eligible unit from your army is selected to make a normal, advance, or fallback move. And you can trigger this more than once per phase, as long as you're not stacking it on the same unit. It gives them +2 to their movement characteristic. Very, very powerful ability. You can give, again, up to 4 units +2 move for the round. Very, very spicy. I love it. Fleeting Shadows. This is a trigger when a unit from your army is selected to make a normal, advance, or fallback. Enemy units cannot overwatch against them. This is massive. This is probably my favorite of the 6 that we have here. And this is huge because Eldar are very flimsy. Ultimately, flamethrowers are the bane. We have a lot of scary shooting right now in the game between Space Brains and tactical orcs and things like that. There's a lot of things to be worried about in Overwatch, and this just gets around it. Now, I will note, it is once per phase, but you can do this when you go make a normal, advance, or fallback. All happens during the movement phase or declares a charge. So you could have 2 units be under the effect of this. You do 1 in the movement phase, 1 in the charge phase. So keep in mind. Star Engines, this is for a vehicle unit, and this gives them d6 + 1 inches to their move characteristic. Obviously more niche, but basically an upgraded version of Swift as the Wind to account for the fact that the vehicles are already faster. Love it. Sudden Strike, this allows your unit to have a pile-in and consolidation move of 6 inches instead of 3. Very, very strong ability. Again, more niche, but really going to help you play those kind of movement shenanigans and make sure you get to where you need to go. Opportunity Seized is another one, and this happens when an enemy ends a fallback move, and your unit, as long as they're not Titanics and no Wraith Knights here, can make a normal move of d6 + 1. So you're fighting by a wall, your enemy falls back, you decide, okay, I'm going to trigger this, and I'm going to fall back behind this wall. Now they can't see you, can't shoot you. There's no end to the shenanigans you can do with this ability. And finally, Fade Back. This happens in your opponent's shooting phase after an enemy unit has shot, and you basically select one of your units, non-Titanic, so non-Wraith Knight, that was hit. Just hit, and you can make a normal move of d6 + 1. So if someone shoots at you, again, same thing, pop behind the wall, stay safe. These are incredibly powerful abilities, and I think they really fit much better with Eldar than the idea of like these Fate dice. So I love it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. They also note here, you can include Harley Quinns in your army, even though they don't have a Asuryani faction keyword, but you cannot select Harley Quinn or Yari as your army faction, and there's a bit more on how you want to build like a pure Yari, a pure Harley Quinn army later on. So we'll talk about that when we get there. With that, let's take a look at the detachment, starting off with the War Host. Some people are going to say this is the index detachment. It is, but it has changed a lot. Obviously, Fate dice are gone, and also the reroll, hit, and wound are also gone. Thank goodness. Powerful ability, yes. Boring, also yes. All right, so this is the War Host. I think this might be the strongest of the detachments, certainly the most straightforward. Let's take a look. This is Martial Grace is their detachment rule, and the way it works is at the start of the battle round, you receive 1 additional battle token, and each time your army performs the Swift as the Wind agile maneuver until the end of the phase, you get an extra +1 to the move characteristic of models in that unit. And then the same thing for the agile maneuver. These are the Swift as the Wind is the +2 movement to a just one of your units, and then the other one Swift. What's the other one? Let's see. Agile maneuver. Sorry. Agile maneuver. Oh, they're all agile maneuvers. Each time a unit from your army performs an agile maneuver that involves rolling a d6, you just add 1 to the result. Oh, okay, cool. So it just generically gives you a +1. So more shenanigans, more often, more better. Love it. We see the Phoenix Gems, same as before, goes on any Asuryani model. The first time they're destroyed, you roll a dice, and on a 2+, they get back up as close as possible to where they were destroyed, not in engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, with its full wounds remaining. Still good, you got some key characters, and boy, there's a lot of them. Timeless Strategist on an Asuryani model only. At the start of the round, if the bearer is on the battlefield or on a transport that is embarked, which is on the battlefield, you receive 1 additional battle focus token. Love it. So now we're talking about getting 5 battle focus tokens each round to do these shenanigans. Big fan. Gift of Foresight, Asuryani model only. Once per battle round, you can target the bearer's unit with the command reroll for free. Cute. you know, why not? And then Psychic Destroyer on a Asuryani Psyker model gives +1 damage to the damage characteristic of a ranged psychic weapons equipped by the bearer. Sounds incredibly strong. I think it's not bad. There's no weapon that has like a crazy volume of shots, which we'll talk a bit more later on, but you know, still not bad. Honestly, I think these are all fantastic. I'm really trying to take time with Strategist every single game. This Psychic Destroyer depends on if I have a character that it goes well with, which we'll talk about later. These two are a little bit optional. Again, really depends on what kind of squad this guy is in and whether or not I have a character that is worth spending those extra points to keep alive. And then obviously can't be in Phoenix Lord because it has to be non-unique. So very powerful ability here. A couple standouts here. Pretty exciting. Now let's take a look at the strats. All right, first off, lightning fast reactions for 1 CP. This is the same as before. In your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, after an enemy unit has selected its targets, you can give an Asuryani unit that's not a Wraith Construct -1 to be hit. Classic, can't go wrong. Skyborn Sanctuary is 1 CP at the end of the fight phase. You can allow an Asuryani unit from your army and 1 friendly transport. You can basically take one of your Asuryanis, put them into a transport as long as they are wholly within 6 inches of it. Very, very, very strong. As we mentioned, Eldar are very fragile. You need to be able to be hidden out of line of sight, or ideally in a transport. So I love the flexibility here. Feigned Retreat, same as before, 1 CP. You are able to fall back, shoot, and charge. This is an essential. Again, you don't want to be tagged up and caught off guard. Blitzing Firepower for 1 CP is done in your shooting phase, and this is going to give your Asuryani unit, so only Asuryani unit, sustained hits 1 if they're targeting unit within 12 inches. And if they already have sustained hits 1, they instead get crits on 5s. Again, very powerful ability here, particularly on things like Dire Avengers, who already have sustained hits. And spoiler alert, they now have 4 shots each. So we're talking about crits on sustained on 5s with 44 shots from a 10-man brick. Very, very cool. Fire and Fade, a classic, is only 1 CP. It is only a D6 +1 move, and you cannot charge after you do it, but just a little bit of extra movement after you shot is fantastic. Again, you cannot do this on aircraft, a Sermon, or Wraith Construct units. And the reason you can't do it on a Sermon is because he already has his inbuilt way to do this, so you're not stacking them. Again, very powerful ability, more so using it to tow in and out of terrain than you are to like make leaps and bounds in the way that you used to. Still solid. And finally, Webway Tunnel, good old uppy downy. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, you select an Asuryani infantry unit, wholly within 9 of 1 or more battlefield edges. And if it's not in engagement range of enemies, you can put it into strategic reserve. Very important. You can gain deep strike if you have deep strike. Also important because Swooping Hawks lost their ability to do uppy downy natively, so this will kind of let them regain it and give you a bit of that flexibility. So overall, I love the Warhost. As I said, this is out of the box, I think, the strongest detachment. I say it's straightforward. It still obviously has lots and lots of tricks. It's going to require you to master the movement phase, master those battle focus tokens, but I think it's very clear what it's trying to do, and it's just generically strong with a number of different units. So, pretty solid. Next up, the Wind Rider host. Jet bikes are back, baby, and this is our kind of same Han light detachment. Let's take a look at this, starting off with the detachment rule, which is Ride the Wind. In the declare battle formation step, you can set up Asuryani mounted, so jet bikes, and Viper units from your army in reserves, period. During the battle, such units can be set up on the battlefield as if they were arriving from strategic reserves. For the purposes of setting up these mounted or Viper units, treat the battle round number as being 1 higher than it actually is. This means you could come in turn 1, so really start to outflank your opponent. In addition, at the end of your opponent's turn, you can select a number of Asuryani mounted or Viper units. You can basically uppy downy them, up to 2 units in a 2,000 points game, so you can put them back in reserve. So you're popping in early, you're disappearing, you're coming back. It's a cool concept. It's got a lot of flexibility. The only downside is it doesn't really leverage the fact that these are already quick units. They're already fast units, so a bit of a bummer there. Finally, of course, Wind Riders gain the battle line keyword. This means you can take up to 6 units of them, and they're very important currently in Pariah Nexus, since there's a number of abilities that benefit only battle line units. Let's take a look at the enhancements. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, as always. First Drawn Blade is on an Asuryani mounted model, and it gives them the Scout 9 ability. This works for the whole unit, of course, which is important, because otherwise the whole thing wouldn't confer. So I like it. I think, obviously you put this on like a Farseer on bike, let them scout up the board and kind of be forward facing. Mirage, this is, again, Master anti-mounted only. Each time an attack targets the bearer's unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. Great. Another important thing to note, and I'm sorry to say, that the Wind Riders have lost an armor save. They go from a 3 to a 4, so they are going to be more fragile than ever. So keep that in mind. -1 to hit can help protect them a little bit. Next up, Seer Sight Strike on a Asterion mounted Psyker model only, and it gives their psychic weapons anti-monster 2+, anti-vehicle 2+. Now, of course, this always bears the question. Whenever you see these anti-abilities, you go to the datasheets and you say, do I have any devastating wounds available here? Can we do some horrendous, horrifying things? Bing! Skyrunner, you can see here, this gives it to their psychic weapons. Beautiful. So you can see here we have a bunch of psychic. Unfortunately, no devastating. But it does mean things like your Eldritch Storm are going to go, they're going to be strength 6, but also anti-infantry, anti-monster, anti-vehicle 2+. So nothing too crazy coming out of there. It's just going to make them more effective. So a little thing to check. Next up, Echoes of Ulthanesh. This is, again, on a mounted model only. In your command phase, roll a d6, and you add 1 if the bearer is not within your deployment zone. And adding an additional 1 if the result of the bearer is within your opponent's deployment zone. On a 5+, you get a CP. It's cute, I will say. We're talking about unit changes. Autarchs do not give you an extra CP each and every turn. They're basically just captains now. So this is a welcome way to get extra CP in your army. So overall, we see some kind of niche enhancements. We see an interesting but somewhat niche detachment rule. Let's look at the stratagems. Death from on high. This is a 1 CP stratagem in your shooting phase or the fight phase. An Asterion mounted or Viper unit from your army that was set up on the battlefield from reserve this turn has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, you can, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the wound roll. That is incredibly powerful. Wow. So they have to come in this turn, which again, this is supported by being able to pop in and out of the board. Get some full rerolls to wound. Very, very spicy on a big brick of bikes. Next up, we have 1 CP Overflight in your shooting phase or the fight phase, just after an Asterion mounted unit destroys an enemy unit. They can make a normal move of 7 inches. 7. So it's not quite Fire and Fade, but it is. It's not the old Fire and Fade, but it is more movement than the new Fire and Fade. So I think it's cool. It's going to obviously take some timing. I love that it works in shooting and the fight phase, which means your Shining Spears can pop out of line of sight. Next up, we have Wind Blades for 1 CP. In your movement phase, you select, again, Mounted or Viper unit. They have the ability to fall back, shoot, and charge. Again, kind of mandatory in some of these utility factions. Daring Riders for 1 CP. In the reinforcement step of your movement phase, you can select a Mounted or Viper unit that's in reserve, and they can be set up, in this case, says 3 inches horizontally from enemy units. Remember, that is FAQ to 6 inches. And if they're set up within 9 of 1 or more enemy units, they are not eligible to charge. So arrive close, but no charge. Really, this is for, again, another big brick of bikes or Vipers to shoot. Now, do note that the Wind Riders also only have the max squad size of 6 instead of 9 now, so you can't completely cheese this out, unfortunately. Looking at Focus Firepower, in your shooting phase, you select Mounted or Viper unit, and they get +1 AP. Ooh, that's a spicy meatball. I love it. Scattered lasers now have sustained hits, so it's a little bit better. And shuriken cannons have gone from from sustained hits to lethal hits. So some interesting profiles to play with there. Extra AP is welcome on both of those that have low AP. And the shuriken catapults starting at AP1 going to AP2. Very, very cool to see. So I'm a fan. And finally, Spiraling Evasion 1 CP in your opponent's shooting phase after an enemy unit has selected its target. You select a Mounted or Viper unit, and they have a 4+ invulnerable save. Again, very welcome because they only have a 3-up armor. So really makes them much more resilient against some shooting. And that is the Wind Rider host. Overall, I think, again, not quite as strong as the last detachment, but I really like what it's doing here. It's all about movement, it's about shooting, it's about positioning, it's about being right place, right time. It's about making sure that you fully kill squads so you can get your override moves. It's cool. I'm a bit nervous that the bikes lost an armor save. They weren't exactly seeing a ton of play before. but I'm really keen to see what people come up with for the Windrider host. Moving right along, we've got the Spirit Conclave, of course, the classic Iyanden-style Wraith Detachment. This is Shepherds of the Dead Detachment Rule. Each time an Asuryani Psyker model from your army is destroyed by an enemy unit, the enemy unit gains a Vengeful Dead token, aka a Grudge token. Each time a Wraith Construct model from your army makes an attack that targets a unit with one or more Vengeful Dead tokens, add 1 to the hit and 1 to the wound. Very powerful, although pretty dang situational, and ultimately kind of in control of your enemy. What else? Asuryani Psyker models from your army have the following ability. Spirit Guides. It's an aura that says while Wraith Blades or Wraith Guard or Wraith Lord units are within 12 inches of this model, they have the Battle Focus ability. Remember, they didn't previously have it. They can't do all those reactive moves, the extra +2 move. This is very, very spicy. Having Wraiths that can actually move quickly is going to be... that's a game changer, frankly. Now, again, we're talking about unit changes as we go through this. Wraiths are now only toughness 6, not toughness 7. So they are going to be easier to kill for your enemy. But again, now you're going to get access to these tricks, which is another great way to keep fragile units alive. And of course, as expected, Wraith Blades and Wraith Guard gain battle lines. So you're going to be able to do those special Pariah Nexus abilities, and you can take up to 6 of each type in your list. Taking a look at the 4 enhancements, we've got Light of Clarity on a Spirit Seer model only. In your command phase, you select 1 friendly Wraith Construct within 12. Until the start of your next command phase, they get +1 to their OC if they're infantry, and +3 to the OC if they are monsters. Honestly, I think it's great. If you're going to be running this detachment, you need this. Staff of Kurnos. This is on a Spirit Seer model only as well. In your command phase, you select 1 friendly Wraith Construct within 12, not Titanic, so no Wraith Knights. Until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in that unit makes an attack on a critical wound, it has precision. I'm always skeptical of these things. Of course, we have seen that Deathwatch can put it to effective use lately. I'm not running out to go ahead and take this enhancement, but it is cute if you have a decent amount of volume on some of these units, so could be good for taking out those little support characters. Rune of Mists is again for a Spirit Seer model only, and in your command phase you select a friendly Wraith Construct unit within 12. This can be Titanic. Until the start of your next command phase, basically they cannot be, unless they're within 18 inches, they get the benefit of cover. Fantastic. Basically a +1 to their armor save. So, love it. Definitely taking this, definitely taking this. And finally, Higher Duty. This is Spirit Seer model only. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback within 9 of the bear's unit can make a normal move of 6 inches. Oh, we love a good reactive move, especially a flat 6 rather than rolling a dice. Incredibly, incredibly powerful. So in my mind, you're taking all 3 of these every single time, with this one probably being slightly less valuable than the other 2. I love it. So we see kind of half an awkward rule, half a good rule, a great set of enhancements. Let's take a look at the stratagems. This is Seer's Eye for 1 CP in your shooting phase or the fight phase. 1 Aeldari Psychic model from your army and 1 Wraith Construct unit within 12 inches of that has not been selected to shoot or fight. You pick an enemy unit visible to the Psyker, and the Wraith Construct has the ability to ignore all damage modifiers and all AP modifiers. That's massive. There are more and more people that are able to ignore hit and wound and strength modifiers, but ignoring damage, still very hard to come by, and there's a couple ways to do that in this book. Wraithbone Armor is 1 CP, your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. After an enemy unit has selected its targets, you pick a Wraith Construct unit that's not a Wraith Knight, and until the end of the phase, they are -1 damage against them. Oh, it's so good! And it's only 1 CP. -1 damage for 1 CP is like kind of bananas. So big, big, big upgrade. Whatever that you can't do it on the big guys. Do this on a big blocker Wraiths. Who cares about losing in toughness? You can be -1 damage. This is awesome. Very, very cool. So extra damage, extra resilience. What do we have here? Blades from Beyond, 1 CP in the fight phase. You pick a Wraith Blades, Wraith Lord, or Wraith Knight unit. Until the end of the phase, melee weapons equipped by models in their unit have devastating wounds. Oh, it's good. Now, they don't have anti to pass around with this, but still a very fun ability. Let's see what else we have. Soul Bridge for 1 CP in your command phase. You select Wraith Blade, Wraith Guard, or Wraith Lord, and 1 Asuryani Psyker. And until the start of your next command phase, that unit is considered to be 12 of your Psyker for the purposes of the Psychic Guidance and Spirit Guides ability. Spirit Guides, of course, is the ability that we mentioned here on the left, which grants them battle focus. And the other ability, sadly, I am sad to say, is the fact that these Wraith units are still base weapon skill BS of 4, getting a +1 if they are being babysat. So personally, I feel like we've passed this phase of game design where units have a decided downside unless you have something. Generally speaking, what we see is units are fine with something, but get better as long as they have their buffy unit. But whatever. So you can see here, Psychic Guidance. While this unit is within 12 of one or more friendly Aeldari Psychic models in this unit have leadership of 6. Ooh, that's good. And they get +1 to hit. So you can see they're starting on 4s, going to 3s. You have to have someone nearby if you're gonna run these guys. And so this basically says you can have the benefit even if you're not there, even if you leave the range. Spirit token for 1 CP at the start of your movement phase, 1 Wraith Blades or Wraith Guard unit from your army. You select an objective marker that they're on. Basically, you sticky it. It's going to be under your control even if you are shot off of it or if you leave it. And finally, Crushing Strides for 1 CP in your charge phase. After a Wraith Blade, Wraith Lord, or Wraith Knight unit from your army ends a charge move, the Wraith Blade, Wraith Lord, or Wraith Knight unit is able to... it's impact hits. So you roll 1 dice for each Wraith Blade, you roll 4 dice for the Wraith Lord, and you roll 6 dice for the Wraith Knight. Every 3 plus is a mortal wound. Nice on a big unit of 10 Wraith Blades in particular. And there's actually no cap listed here, which is kind of ridiculous. So what do we think about this? I think the Wraith units are not necessarily the strongest units in the Codex. More on that later. But I think this really helps shore up some of their weaknesses, gives them some decided advantages. They're moving faster, they're reacting better, they are ignoring modifiers, they are being tougher, and they're getting around some of their weaknesses, which is not many units and not hitting super well. So I think it's a cool detachment. I'm excited to try it. Let me know what you think about the Spirit Conclave. Now we have the Guardian Battle Host. This was not on my bingo list, but let me tell you, it's a cool one. This is all about Guardians and Dire Avengers. Starting off with Defend at all costs, this is a detachment rule that says, each time a Dire Avenger, Guardian support weapon, or Warwalker model from your army makes an attack, if the model's unit and or the target are within range of 1 or more objective markers, add 1 to the hit roll. Now, +1 to hit is extremely powerful, as we've seen in previous detachments. This one's even more powerful in the sense that it's not just when your opponent is on an objective, it's also when you are on an objective. So you can get a lot of control about when you get this benefit. Amazing ability. On, frankly, some amazing units. All of these are fantastic. We have Craft World Champion. This is on Asuryani model only. The bear has an objective control of 5. Cute, why not? Ethereal Pathway, isn't that a town thing? This is on Asuryani model only, and in the deploy army step, select up to 2 Guardian units from your army. They have the Infiltrator's ability. I love this. Getting sneaky with a big brick of Defenders or Storm Guardians is cool, it's fun, and it's going to have some nice utility play. You can screen people out. Orc players with Commandos will understand. Next up, Protector of the Paths. This is Asuryani model only. While they're leading a Dire Avengers or Guardians unit once per battle round, you can give them Overwatch for free, and while they're resolving that stratagem, they hit on 5s or 4s if the bear's unit is within range of an objective mark you control. Oh, it's very, very spicy. Remember, folks, Dire Avengers have 4 shots each now with sustained. So that's 44 shots, because you can have the Exarch with extra gun, hitting on 5s, sustained, hitting on 4s if you're on objective, sustained for free. That's very good. And then finally, Breath of Vol, Asuryani model. While they're leading a Storm Guardians unit, each time you roll to determine the number of attacks made with a Flamer, you can reroll the result. Each time you make a damage roll for a model equipped with the Guardian Fusion Gun, you can reroll the result of the damage. It's cool. It's a little weird to invest in Guardian units like that, but I mean, I kind of like Storm Guardians, so it's not crazy. Very cool abilities. These two stand out as like the auto takes, with these being a bit more situational, maybe if I have some extra points. All right, next up, let's take a look at Warding Salvos. This is 1 CP in your shooting phase or the fight phase, and you select a Dire Avengers or Guardian unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. They are going to gain the ability to reroll wound rolls. as long as they target an enemy within range of one or more objective markers. Oh, it's so good. We're getting so many stacking buffs here. And shooting and fight phase. Look, take it from someone who's played a lot of Renegade Raiders. People have to stand on objectives to play the game, turns out. Shield nodes for 1 CP in your shooting phase or the fight phase. After an enemy unit has selected its targets, you pick a Dire Avenger or Guardian unit that was targeted, and they are -1 to be wounded. Now, I love that this works in fight phase as well as shooting phase. I can't tell you how sad it makes me that my Fire Warriors are only -1 to wound in shooting, and then someone just comes in and beats them up. So, very cool ability. Vol's Vengeance for 1 CP. Your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. After an enemy unit destroys a Dire Avengers or Guardian unit, you can select a Warwalker, and they're able to shoot once per round. I mean, situationally, it will be very, very strong, but it's very situational. So, yeah, I'd kind of rather have something else, but I won't. Time Strike 1 CP in your movement phase. You can select a Storm Guardians unit that's not selected to move yet, and this is going to give them an automatic 6-inch advance, which, my god, in this case, talk to the Sigmar players, auto advance 6 inches, a very strong ability. It also notes that you cannot charge till the end of the turn. Your turn is eligible to shoot. Oh, you are. You can shoot and charge. Oh, that's spicy. So you're running in, you're flaming, you're melting, you're charging, you're fighting, you're locking them up, you're bringing in the extra OC. Maybe you're -1 to wound. Oh, I love it. That's cool. Next up, we have Blades of Assyrian, 1 CP. In your shooting phase, you select a Dire Avengers or Guardian unit that's not selected to shoot yet, and they're going to get pistol. So if someone tags up your big shooty block, switch on pistol mode, try to gun your way out. Love it. And finally, the cost of victory at 1 CP at the end of your opponent's fight phase. You select a Guardians unit from your army. If they are not within engagement range of enemy units, you can remove them from the battlefield, put them in reserve, and you can return every destroyed Guardians model to your unit. Tough to balance. If someone kills you fully, you can't do this, but if they're just whittling away, if you're hiding around a corner, it's pretty sick, actually. They're in reserve, and you're getting a bunch back. Love it. I love this detachment. I think 30 Dire Avengers is going to be super scary in here. I actually highly rate the Guardians as well, so very excited to see how this performs. It's kind of like the old, what was it? The one where you have like a bunch of shuriken shots, except you just can't. You're not also leaning into jet bikes. So I love it. Very cool to see. Aha! Here we are, the Ghosts of the Webway. Ooh. My personal favorite, the Harley Quinns. Back and, maybe not better than ever, but certainly better than they've been this entire edition. Now, before we look at the stratagem, I want to talk about the data sheets just a little bit. We've been kind of doing that as we go through, but I think it's even more important for the Harley Quinns because they have had just absolutely doo-doo data sheets. Troops, still only OC1, however, they gain some benefits. The characters, very solid. The Death Jester is functionally the same as he was before. Yeah, you still choose between the different profiles. You can battle shock people -1. Shadowseer, big upgrade when they join a squad. They grant 18-inch lone operative, and when someone attacks their squad in melee, their attackers' weapons have hazardous. So Sanguinary Guard, if they're fighting you, roll a dice on a 1. You just die, bub. Sorry. The Solitaire did take a hit in terms of he's going to a 4+ invulnerable save, but still solid. Hopefully still cheap. Troop Masters also saw an upgrade. Everyone fights better, and you can see their actual fighting characters now. This guy gives a 6-inch consolidate pile in, so you don't have to use your battle focus for that. Just the character himself rerolls hit rolls of 1 and gets +1 to wound. And you'll note he doesn't give devastating wounds anymore. Well, fear not, that's because troops just always have devastating wounds in melee. Thank goodness. They're not reliant on getting the charge, which was so important before. Instead, they always have devastating, and you got a couple little upgrades on the shooting weapons. The fusion goes to D6 damage, thank goodness. The Neuro Disruptor actually is a real weapon with the AP2. And importantly, they have the Dance of Death. At the start of the fight phase, you can select an ability for them to have. You can give them reroll hit rolls of 1, you can make them -1 to wound, +1 to wound, or you can give them -1 to be hit. So whatever situation you need, you can adapt them to. I love this change. I'm a huge, huge fan. So big upgrade. It's not everything I would have hoped for, but it's certainly more than I expected. So like that upgrade there. Skyweavers, I think, are basically the same, except now they are back to being -1 to hit all the time, which I love. And we mentioned the change earlier as far as shuriken cannons going from sustained to lethal. So genuinely some interesting combos there. Void Weavers, big upgrade in polychromatic camouflage. They have 18-inch load up all the time. This is a fantastic ability. Their guns are only 24-inch range, so you're kind of threading the needle there, but it's going to really, really help their durability. And in this case, the shuriken cannons going from sustained to lethal is a big upgrade, because now you can think about putting your 2 shuriken cannons into the same type of targets that you're shooting your Void Weaver Haywire cannon or your Prismatic cannon into. So, love that. Finally, the Star Weaver, I don't think out of the box came with any changes other than the shuriken cannon, but I honestly think it's totally fine as is, other than maybe a -1 to hit would have been nice. That is the Harley Quinn units. So with that, we can have a bit of context for the Harley Quinns. So the detachment rule, first off, I will say luck dice not coming back, but the good news is that you can take Aeldari units, Asuryani units in this detachment as well. You're not locked to pure Harley Quinns, which is awesome. So we have a lot more options to play with. First off, Acrobatic Onslaught. Each time a Harley Quinn's model from your army makes a charge move, it can move through enemy models. So flip belts, kind of fixed, not fully. I really wish they basically just made them fully fly to be able to go through everything, but that's the way it goes. So you could charge through enemies, jump over them, that's cool. Troops are battle line. Good, makes sense, obviously, get that before. And they're gonna have OCF too, thank goodness. So finally you can actually build a proper army where your troops are actually OC2. And, oh yeah, the thing I forgot to mention on the Harley Quinn characters is if you are not in this detachment, you can only take 1 of each in your army. In this case, now you can take up to 3 of each in your army. I don't know that you're taking more than 1 Death Jester, but I would certainly take more than 1 Shadow Seer and probably more than 1 Troop Master. So that's great. We've gotten our enhancements here. First is Troop Master only, Segarax Coil, and this basically grants your unit impact hits of mortal wounds on a 4+. I love this on a big unit of troops, especially with like a Shadow Seer. Oh, it has to be Troop Master, so that's fine, Troop Master, whatever. Mask of Secrets, Harley Quinn's model only. Each time they are in engagement range of, each time an enemy unit that's not a monster or vehicle falls back, they take a Desperate Escape test, and if they're battle shocked, they'll be at a -1. I like this a lot. I'm curious to see how durable these units really are. They're a little bit tougher than they used to be, but I mean, automatic Desperate Escape is quite strong. Again, you're just killing models in 1s and 2s. Finally, Murder's Jest, Death Jester only. Each time the bearer makes an attack that targets a unit that is below half strength, each hit is automatically a critical hit. I'm excited to test this one because, of course, you can still give him Sustain 3. It's hard to trigger, but once you do, I mean, it's 3 shots. Every hit is just 3 hits. So pretty spicy. So I want to test that one. And then finally, Mistweave on Shadow Seer model only. While the bear is leading a unit, models in that unit have the Infiltrator's ability. Again, I like this on a big brick of troops in the middle. We'll talk a bit more about that in a second. So again, not the strongest abilities here, but we're seeing like they're filling the gaps that we needed them to fill. And here they're giving extra abilities that we haven't had before, so I'm excited for that. I love this. I love this. I actually like all of them, frankly. If I could take all of them, I probably would. So I'm gonna have to mess around, but certainly these 2, and then these 2 are gonna have to duke it out to see which one makes it into my list. Strateg Gems. This is where the Harley Quinns really start to shine because they get some of those awesome tricks that made me and many other people fall in love with them in the first place. We have Stage Death for 1 CP. Basically, this allows you to bring one of your Harley Quinn characters that were killed back to life at the end of the phase with half their wounds. You can only do this once per game, per character, but again, very strong, very interesting, especially with the new battle focus, because you can then... The problem with bringing a character back before, if this existed, would be that this is one character, they're going to die to Overwatch, die to anything. But now you can battle focus them to turn off Overwatch, really deliver them into combat, or get them back into safety so they can continue scoring points. Love it. Heroes Fall for 1 CP. This is a fight on death in close combat. Triggers on a 4+. It's fine, it's standard. You either get automatic fight on death for 2 CP, or you get 4+ fight on death for 1 CP. Take your pick. This is the one we got. I think it's not bad. So between fight on death and hazardous in melee from the Shadow Seer, I think the big bricks of Harley Quinns can be a scary deterrent for our opponents. Mocking Flight, 1 CP, allows your unit to fall back, shoot, and charge. Again, mandatory, so any of the detachments that don't have this, probably going to suffer. Trickster's Retort, this one is terrifying. This is a 6-inch reactive move if an enemy makes lands within 9 inches of a troop unit. Incredibly strong, incredibly powerful. Going to be a little bit awkward to play on the table because I don't like gotchas. I want to try to warn my opponent, but this is literally designed to sort of throw their plans in motion. So you're going to have to thread the needle there to like thematically trick them, but not literally trick them. I don't know. This is the one awkward part about playing Harley Quinns. Bloody Dance for 1 CP. This is effectively a 6-inch heroic intervention. Very, 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 very strong. We saw the Space Wolves got this back in 3 inches. Hard to play around. 6 inches, much more interesting. So imagine someone does a move close to you. You can react to move away, make the charge awkward. If they fail, you can charge back in. You know, you won't have the fight first, but you'll get other bonuses. Or you charge a different unit. Lots of shenanigans to do here, so I'm excited about that. And finally, exit the stage, 1 CP, uppy downy. You can pick a unit, a Harley Quinn unit that's not in engagement range, and put them into strategic reserve. Now, I don't think any of them have deep strike, so no deep strike, but still, uppy downy is one heck of a drug. Overall, very, very excited for the Harley Quinns here. As I mentioned, it's not everything I could have dreamed of, but it is pretty dang good, enough that I think we're finally a real army again. So I'm excited. Yeah, I think this is all cool stuff. So let me know what you think about Harley Quinns. As you know, they're very near and dear to my heart. I've been playing them for several editions now, so I am so excited to get them on the table again. All right, moving on. The Devoted of Yneid. This is the Yari Detachment, and they've done some cool stuff here. I think, just like we did for the Harley Quinns, I want to look at the data sheets for the Yari stuff before we look at their detachment ability and see what this looks like. So one nice thing is they have done what some people suspected, and they've streamlined a lot of the Yari profiles. They have taken all the Drukhari that you can take as Yari and put them into this book with their own profiles, which is awesome. So let's go through them. I am less familiar with the 10th edition Yari stats, so forgive me if I'm not noticing big changes. If you see some that I don't see, let me know in the comments below. I want to learn from you and the same way that you can learn from me. So we got the Vizark, which gives the unit fight first. I believe they did that before. And then, of course, gives a 4-up Feel No Pain to other character units attached to the unit, because you can basically double join. 3 different cool, fun profiles, which all look kind of awesome. I love that this one is a Mythic Stance, Anti-Epic here on a 2+. Hilarious. So it looks cool, looks solid. Points will be important, obviously. The Incarn, I think it is a bit more limited. The way this works now is, so it's toughness 10, 2+ save, 4+ invul, no Feel No Pain, 12 wounds. Moves 10, we said that. Each time it destroys an enemy unit, regains D3 lost wounds. Cool. And Inevitable Death. This is the big one. Once in each of your opponent's turns, if this model is on the battlefield when another friendly Aeldari unit is destroyed, just after removing the last model in that unit, you can remove this model from the battlefield and set it up as close as possible to where that destroyed model was destroyed and not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units. So it's only in your opponent's turn when they kill one of your Eldar units. So very limiting. I'm curious to see what we can do with it. You will still be able to heroically intervene or overwatch and things like that. You do have a torrent weapon, which is quite excellent. D6 plus 3 for D3 damage is nothing to sneeze at. So yeah, I'm curious. Again, points will matter a lot to kind of determine how viable the Incarn is. But what a sick model! I want to try out. I'm a player. Next up, we've got Yvraine, who I was a big fan of Yvraine before this. I think, unfortunately, she did take a bit of a hit. She no longer grants a 5-up Feel No Pain to the unit that she joins. That's tragic. She still has her bananas anti-infantry 2+ devastating flamethrower. Sorry, not flamethrower, but effectively, because she hits on 2s and then wounds on 2s. And then now Ward of the Phoenix Psychic, while this model is leading a unit in your command phase, roll a d6 on a 2+. D3 plus 1 destroyed bodyguard model units, excluding support weapons, are returned with their full wounds remaining. The downside is that you cannot join Harley Quinn troops anymore, which was a cool thing to do before. But you can put her in Incubi, you can put her in Witches. To me, those are like the most interesting. Maybe one of the Corsairs, but really I think it's these other 2. And then at the start of the fight phase, you can select an enemy unit with engaged range of this model. and it gives a full reroll to wound with Aeldari model against that unit. So it's a cool, interesting debuff. Yeah, I'm curious what y'all think. I still think she's worth taking. Some people were a bit skeptical, but although she's diminished, probably I think still interesting. Next up, we've got Ynnari Archon. Yes, we do have Shadowfield still. It is a 2+ invulnerable save. You cannot reroll it, and once it's gone, it's gone. When they're leading a unit, they grant a reroll wound roll of 1, and while the unit is below starting strength, they are reroll full wounds. Now, cool, they don't have to deal with anything with pain tokens, which you obviously don't have, so we get around that. Relying on being hurt, never a good thing. However, below starting strength, so lose 1 person in the unit. That's doable. We can do that with disarmification, or I don't know. It's awkward, I won't deny that. But a very, very powerful ability once you can get it. And then, instead of a Vect Aura, they have a CP reduction ability, like a captain, basically. So, checks out. The Ynnari Succubus grants sustained hits to the unit, and if they are below starting strength, then fight first. So again, same awkwardness about how do you lose the first wound without losing too many. Once you do, it's an incredible buff. So we're gonna have to figure out how to juggle that. Cobbleites, they still have sticky objective holding, so that's the same there. Cool, cool. The Witches, still 6-up in Invul and going to 4+ in melee. And Desperate Breakout, Desperate Escape for non-monsters and vehicles, same as before, cool. The Incubi still cause Battle Shock. Unfortunately, still Strength 4. I was hoping we'd see them go to Strength 5. That's been one of my big gripes during this whole edition, is Incubi are only Strength 4. And in this case, you can get the Archon to get the wound rerolls, but again, you have to lose a model first. So, I don't know. But we'll see what we come up with. You can also take Ynnari Reavers. This is the jet bikes, and they have the eviscerating flyby for mortal wounds. We have the grab talent, which gives them lance, and the cluster caltrops, which give you the reroll on the mortal wounds here. Great utility unit. Assuming it will be cheaply a price to go. We'll see about that soon, hopefully. And we've got a couple more. The Raider, of course, classic. Auto advance 6 inches. Shoot out of it, firing deck 11. And then the Venom with the statement ability to get back in. So very, very solid. You'll notice that's it. Yep. That is everything. So there are no Ravagers. There is no Court of the Archon. There is no Void Raven Bombers. You are very limited in the types of Drukhari units you can have in the Ynnari army. I think it's a slight bummer, but overall, I think it's the right call so they can properly balance everything. That's what always gets Ynnari in trouble. So with that, let's take a look at the Ynnari. Pause for dramatic coffee effect. Take a look. Strength from Death, Detachment Rule. You have 3 abilities: Lethal Intent, Lethal Surge, and Lethal Reprisal. First of all, Lethal Intent, at the end of your opponent's shooting phase, if 1 or more Ynnari units were destroyed, you can select a Ynnari unit that's not Titanic, and they can make a normal move. Love it. Very, very strong. Especially with little tiny trading units like Reavers, like Venom, stuff like that might die. Lethal Surge is when you do the fade back agile maneuver, you can instead, basically it's exactly the same, but you do a blood surge. That lets you move towards the closest enemy model into combat, potentially letting you fight. So that's very spicy. And don't forget you have access to fight first. Over here we have Lethal Reprisal. And also this doesn't say you can't be battle shocked, for example. Actually, let's see. Do the maneuvers require you to not be battle shocked? It looks good. It looks like you can do it. So meaning like if you have witches in a boat and the boat gets destroyed and a single witch dies getting out because you rolled a 1, they now have fight first. If they get shot at, this is a lot of situations, I know. But if they get shot at, they can surge in, get fight first, and kill. No problem. Then finally, Lethal Reprisal. Start of the fight phase, you can pick a Ynnari unit that's below starting strength, and they gain fight first ability. Love it! So a lot of fight first, kind of conditional, but pretty cool abilities. And of course, this is the actual army construction. The way it works is you can include Ynnari units in your army, even though they do not have the Asuryani faction keyword. Asuryani units, excluding epic heroes, gain the Ynnari keyword. And you must include your Vrain and or the Incarn in your army, and one of those models must be your Warlord. Do note that it, again, kind of like the Harley Quinns, looks like there's less restrictions. You could include Phoenix Lords, you could include the Avatar, which is pretty sick. So we'll see about that. We have 4 enhancements. Gaze of Ynead. This is on a Farseer model only. Their Eldritch Storm weapon has the devastating wounds. So once again, to recap, let's take a look at that. This is Farseer Eldritch Storm. They both have it. It's not anti, so you're not doing anything crazy, but it's not a bad profile. Cool. Depends how much it costs. It depends what else we're taking. Storm of Whispers on a Warlock model only in your shooting phase after the bearer is shot. Select an enemy unit hit by one or more of the attacks. They must take a Battle Shock test. Again, if it's cheap enough, sure, why not? Borrowed Vigor on the Archon model only. Add +2 attacks characteristics of the bearer's weapons. Kind of same deal. And Morbid Might, Succubus model only. Each time the bearer makes a melee attack, you can reroll the wound roll. Oh yes. So this is amazing. This is fantastic. This is an auto take. These other ones, kind of situational, depends on if you have points. But I'm on board for Morbid Might. I like it. I feel like it's first place, second place, and these are kind of tied, kind of situational. All right, let's go. So, Pall of Dread. First of our Strateg Gems, 1 CP. In any phase, 1 Ynnari unit from your army that was just destroyed while it was within range of an objective marker. Basically, you can sticky that objective and continue to control it until your opponent physically takes it from you. I love it. Macabre Resilience, 1 CP, your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase. After an enemy unit has selected its targets, you can pick a Ynnari infantry or Ynnari mounted unit, other than Wraith Constructs, and they are -1 to be wounded. You can do some spicy things here. So infantry or mounted. So this is units that those Ynnari characters join. I think you can do cool stuff with this. I'm trying to think of all the units that it combines with, but largely it makes your little T3 bodies that much tougher. So that's great. Emissaries of Ynead, 1 CP in the fight phase, just after Ynnari infantry unit from your army selected as targets. You pick a Ynnari infantry unit, and they can reroll hit rolls of 1, and if they're below starting strength, you can get full hit rerolls. Again, very powerful ability, limited by having to have taken damage before. And the fear for me is always like, we are Eldar, we are flimsy and made of paper, so the moment we take some damage, we take all the damage and we're dead. How do we balance that? Playtesting, that's what. Parting the Veil, 2 CP, the rare 2 CP stratagem. In the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, you select a Ynnari unit from your army that was one of the targets, and this is Fight on Death. As I said earlier, Harley Quinns for 1 CP, Fight on Death at a 4+, Ynnari automatic Fight on Death for 2 CP. That's the trade-off. So I think it's cool. I think it's going to give some validity to a lot of things that you see here. It's expensive, but remember, you can take Eldrad, which now gives you CP each and every turn. Next up, we've got Soul Sight for 1 CP. In your shooting phase, you select a Ynnari unit from your army that's not been selected to shoot this phase. Ranged weapons have lethal and ignore cover. Never a bad thing to have. And finally, Death Answers Death for 1 CP. At the end of your opponent's shooting phase, you pick a Ynnari unit that's not Wraith Construct that had something destroyed, and they can shoot right on back. Remember, sadly, I'm just realizing this now, there's no Scourge in this book, so you cannot take Ynnari Scourge. Sorry. So that's Ynnari. It's a weird amalgam of things. It's a weird, very powerful abilities locked behind difficult to reach hoops that your opponent controls. So that makes me somewhat skeptical. However, there's a lot of jank in here, so I think some LR players are going to have some real fun with it. So let me know what you think. There are a lot of detachments in here, and we are not done yet. We've got the Seer Council. This is where the Fate dice have gone, but I will say they are very different. So basically think of this as a brand new rule. I also like how this harkens back to the old Seer Council in the days of old, 7th edition. All right, Strands of Fate Detachment Rule. At the start of the first battle round, you generate Fate dice by rolling a number of d6 based on the battle size. Strike force is 6. You roll it, you have your numbers. The way that works is each time you use one of the stratagems opposite, if your Fate dice pool contains one or more Fate dice showing the corresponding value on the table below, you can discard one of your corresponding Fate dice, and if you do, you reduce the CP of that usage by 1. So these basically correspond to the 6 strats, and you can refund or discount the strats. They're actually all 1 CP, so it'll make it for free. Obviously, we'll learn more about what that means in a second. Enhancements 1, 2, 3, 4. As always, Lucid Eye on a Asuryani Psyker model. In your command phase, you can add 1 or subtract 1 from the value of 1 fate dice from your fate pool. Seems mandatory. Runes of Warding on an Asuryani Psyker model only. Models in the Bears unit have the Feel No Pain 4+ against mortal wounds, psychic attacks, and critical wounds by attacks caused by the Devastating Wounds ability. Wow, that is all-encompassing. I actually like that a lot, honestly. I think you so rarely see something that covers all 3 of those bases. So I'm into it. Stone of Eldritch Fury. This is, again, Psyker model only. You add 12 to the range characteristics of ranged psychic weapons equipped by the bear. Yeah, it's okay, kind of expensive. And finally, the Torque of Morai Heg. This is, again, Psyker model only. Once per turn, when your opponent targets a unit from your army within 12 of the bear can use this enhancement. If it does, increase the CP cost of that uses of the stratagem by 1 CP. So it's a limited use Vect. Very, very strong. I think for sure you're taking these 2 every single game. These are kind of situational, and if you have the appropriate points or the appropriate slots for them. With that, let's look at these important stratagems that we can refund using our fate dice. First off, Presentiment of Dread. For 1 CP in your command phase, you pick an Asuryani Psyker model from your army, and you select an enemy unit with an 18. They must take a Battleshock test at -1. It's cute. Battleshock at -1 starts to really be effective, so I'm kind of on board with that. Forewarned, classic old psychic spell. 1 CP in the fight phase after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You pick an Asuryani infantry that's not a Wraith Construct that was targeted and is within 9 inches of a Psyker unit, a model. That unit is now going to be -1 to hit and -1 to wound, so it makes them very, very tough. And yeah, you cannot stack this with your Wraith Blades. I like it, actually. Unshrouded Truth for 1 CP in your movement phase. You pick an Asuryani infantry unit from your army that's not Wraith Construct and is again that is within 9 inches of the Asuryani Psychic model. You can pick them up and put them down 9 inches away from enemy models. Amazing! More than 9 inches. You can't move again. It's pretty sick. Nice little teleport, uppy downy in the movement phase after you've seen what your secondaries are. I like it. Fate Inescapable for 1 CP in your shooting phase. You pick a Asuryani infantry unit from your army that's not a Wraith Construct, and again, is within 9 inches of an Asuryani Psyker. Until the end of the phase, the range weapons equipped by models in that unit gain the Ignore Cover ability, and each time they make a critical wound, get +1 AP. This one I'm not as big of a fan of. The hoops just continue. You have other ways to ignore cover, such as, Shroud Runners. And critical wounds I'm always skeptical of, because you got to roll a 6. First you have to hit, then you have to roll a 6, then it's only +1. Meh. So, meh. 1 CP Isha's Fury in your opponent's movement phase after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback. This is, you select an Asuryani Psyker model from a unit within 9. You roll 6 dice for every 3+. They suffer 1 mortal wound. It's cool. It's like a reactive, improved grenade strat, kind of. It's fun. And then lastly, Psychic Shield for 1 CP, your opponent's shooting phase after an enemy unit has selected its targets. You pick an Asuryani infantry unit that's not a Wraith Construct, and a Psyker unit within 9. They cannot be selected unless you're within 18 inches of them. Very important for some of these very fragile shooting units. Things like Dark Reapers are really going to benefit from it. It's cool. This detachment is weird. It is the definition of hoops on hoops on hoops. You got to have Psykers next to a unit in a certain condition, and you can refund them if you happen to roll this dice earlier on. I'm very skeptical of the amount of things you have to work through to get these abilities. There are cool things. I think it's one of the least obvious detachments. The big takeaway is just you got to run Psykers, and you don't want to run Wraith units. Other than that, I'm not sure. I'm excited to test it out. Of course, I will really want to know in the comments below. What are you theory hammering for this one? And finally, the Aspect Host. This is one of my favorite detachments for one of my favorite ways to play the Eldar. This is the old BL Tan Court of the Young King Aspect Warriors Avatar combo. What happens here? Well, we've got Path of the Warrior. Each time an Aspect Warriors or Avatar of Cain ability from your army is selected to shoot or fight, you can select one of the following abilities for it to gain until the end of the phase. You can either reroll hit rolls of 1 or wound rolls of 1. I think most of the time it's going to be hit rolls because most of your keywords are tied to the hit roll. And generally speaking, you got all your hits, and then you have the wounds. you want to open up the top of funnel because it's ultimately going to help the bottom of the funnel as well. So hits first, prioritize hits, then prioritize wounds after that. 4 enhancements, let's take a look. First off, one of my favorites, Aspect of Murder. On an Autarch or an Autarch Wayleaper, which as you might know by now, can join squads. You add 1 to the damage characteristic of melee weapons equipped by the bear, and those weapons have the precision ability. I love this. Me personally, as soon as I play this detachment, I'm going to be taking this, putting it on a melee Autarch with a Striking Scorpion Saber, putting it in some Striking Scorpions. That is, I want to say like 7 attacks that go to 2 damage with sustained. It's very spicy. So you can see here, Scorpion Chainsword, yeah, 7 attacks, sustained. They're only 4-1-1, but it's going to go 4-1-2. You can get rerolls, so you're getting on 2s, rerolling, sustained. It's very, very fun. So anytime you see +1 damage, you see what's the weapon that has the highest volume that really gets me the best value for that. So obviously taking that one. Mantle of Wisdom, Autarch or Autarch Wayleaper only. While they're leading an Aspect Warrior unit, each time they're selected to shoot or fight until the end of the phase, they gain both of the abilities from the Path of the Warrior. So you're rerolling hit rolls of 1 and wound rolls of 1. Cool. Situationally, I might take that one, obviously. Shimmerstone, Autarch or Autarch Wayleaper. Each time they're leading Aspect Warriors, they are -1 to be wounded. I love this because, again, Eldar are fragile. A big brick of 10 Dire Avengers is not going to stand up to a bunch of shooting, but with -1 to wound, you'll have a few more left. Finally, we have Strategic Savant, Autarch or Autarch Wayleaper. While the bear is leading an Aspect Warriors unit, add 1 to the OC characteristic of models in that unit. Again, another fantastic one. I'm really torn because these are all 4 amazing. I'm sure points will determine a lot, but definitely want the +1 damage. They're all great. They're all great. It's hard to prioritize them. I feel like these 3 and then this one, but this one's good, but I don't know. I like them. I like it all. So good attachment ability, good enhancements. Stratagems. First off, we have Warrior Focus. This is in your shooting phase or the fight phase. You select an Aspect Warriors or Avatar of Cain unit that has not been selected to shoot or fight. And this is another big one. 1 CP. You can ignore ballistic skill, weapon skill, strength, armor penetration, and damage, and hit roll modifiers. So none of those minuses are going to affect you. It is a massive boon. Sorry, Deathwing Knights, you can't AOC. You can when we're doing things. You can't -1 damage. This is amazing. So big, especially for some of these units. To their final breath, 1 CP. Again, fight on death unless you discard a Aspect Shrine token. To talk about Aspect Shrine tokens, they started doing this when they started redoing all the Aspect Warrior boxes. You might have seen, if you built the kits, a little, let's see if there's a picture in here, a little duder that came with them. Hasn't done anything until now. No, there's no pictures. But you can basically discard these throughout the game. Here's one. So this is the Reaper one, which has been out for a while. And here's the new Warp Spider one, which is really freaky. And they all natively allow you to discard them to change the result of a hit or wound roll to a 6. And it's 1 per token. And you get 1 per like 5, generally speaking. So it's kind of like a Bob Squig. So you can do that, or you can burn them here for additional effects. So in this case, it'll make you fight on death on a 3+ instead of a 4+. That's good value. Skyborn Sanctuary, 1 CP. Embark within a transport at the end of the fight phase, even yours. If you're wholly within 6 of the transport. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, love to see it. And then Doom Inescapable at 1 CP in your shooting phase. This one's hilarious. Basically, you take your avatar and you take their spear, which they chuck, and you change it to a range of 18 inches and a damage characteristic of, what? 8. You love it. Love it. It's 8 damage. Melta. Ah, it's not Melta. Ah, dang it. Okay, let's just 8 damage. It basically just caps out the damage, which is very cool. I love it. I love it. Sorry, I was trying to be spicy there. But still very fun. Again, situational. It's 1 shot. If you miss, you're really sad. And there's no fate dice anymore. So, take that as it may. But you're hitting on a 2, rerolling 1s. Like, what are the odds that you fail that? Yeah. Anyways, preternatural precision for 1 CP. In your shooting phase, you select an Aspect Warriors that has not been selected to shoot. You can give them ignore cover, lethal hits, or sustained hits. Or, if you discard a token, you get 2 of those abilities. Again, very, very strong. Finally, Kane's Vengeance for 1 CP. This is a force desperate escape tests when you're falling back from Aspect Warriors or the Avatar of Kane. Doesn't work on monsters, doesn't work on vehicles, and if they're battle shocked, they're a -1. Again, more situational, but because I think, we're Eldar, we're fragile, we're not going to survive a ton, but could be cool. So overall, I think maybe not as strong as the War Host, but I think it's still quite competitive, and it is with some of the stronger units in the Codex and some of the more flavorful ones. That will then lead us into the data sheets. Yeah, overall, I really, really like these detachments. I think the War Host, the Aspect Host, the Harley Quinn one, those all kind of seem like the stronger ones. I think the Seer Council is very situational. The Yari one is kind of a wild card for me. The Guardian Paddle Host I would also put in the stronger category. The Spirit Conclave and the Wind Rider don't seem as strong, so I put those in like the bottom 3 probably. But overall, I think they all have good flavor. Even the weaker ones are partially weaker because I think their units got weaker. And they try to shore up those weaknesses, so a lot of cool stuff there. With that, folks, we're on to the data sheets, and I just want to share, this is the cover of the Eldar Codex when I first started playing. I remember getting this, it had like a blue border, it was beautiful, super like 90s vibes. It was awesome. And just like so bizarre and alien and strange. So cool. And they had the Battle Force box that was like square box. It was awesome. So let's take a look. Again, there are lots of changes in here. I'm going to do my best to get all the changes, but let me know in the comments below. I'm not going to take offense if you point out something that I missed. Avatar of Kane. This is a sad one. We'll start with the sad one. Not toughness 11, not toughness 12, now toughness 11. And as you noticed, actually no, we have not there yet. There is no -1 to wound anymore. So the Avatar really, really relied on that. He also really liked Fate dice for doing an auto 6 for the Wailing Doom. So some pretty big hits on the Avatar. Obviously, points will determine a lot. He better drop by a big chunk, otherwise, I don't know. He just took hits. He did go up to strength 8 on the sweeps, which is fantastic. Great for chopping up all those Marines that are so popular right now. Please, please, let's make him work. I want to figure it out because I really want to take him to an event. Farseers on foot. Now, so they join Guardian Defenders and Storm Guardians. They have the ability to change a hit, a wound, or a damage to a non-modified 6. Kind of a pseudo feat dice from of old, but does not work on support weapons. Don't even try it. And then you can do Guide, which is now just a +1 to hit for Eldari models. You have to be able to see. You have to be within 18 inches. So you're going to have to poke your little patties out of the water and get shot. So maybe you're Fire and Fading back or Agile and Maneuvering back, but you got to be careful. And then Farseer Skyrunner, this is the bike version with Misfortune. This is going to, again, debuff an enemy unit with an 18 and line of sight. They are -1 to wound. Tough, tough, tough. And same deal, auto hit, wound, or damage to a 6 once per phase. So, Farseer is kind of less appealing than they used to be in my opinion. We'll talk about Eldrad soon though. Autarchs, big redesign. They don't have Lone Operative anymore. They don't give you a CP anymore. Instead, they now lead units, which I know it sucks to lose Lone Op. I know it sucks to lose the CP, extra CP, but this kind of is more appropriate. They're basically Space Marine captains now, okay? So you have 2 versions. You have the foot version that can join Banshees, Dark Reapers, Avengers, Fire Dragons, Guardian Defenders, Banshees, Guardians, and Striking Scorpions. You can gain a fight first if you join Banshees, which is what they have. You can, if you join Scorpions, you get Infiltrate and Scout 7 and Stealth. Great. That's that. And what they do now is Superlative Strategist. This means that when you would roll advances, you can re-roll them, and you can re-roll their Agile Maneuvers, which is the reactive move after getting shot. And then Path of Command is, of course, the CP reduction on a strat. As I mentioned, I have some plans for them. You can do the +1 damage in the Aspect Host. You can attach them to cool units. The biggest question for me is, when are you putting these in squads versus when are you just either A, running them bare bones, or B, you're running the Phoenix Lord? And I think it really depends. There's no Corandrus, so obviously I like that here, especially with the +1 damage. yeah, think about that as we look at the Phoenix Lord later on. Way Leaper, this is a jumpy jump version. Again, no lone op. This is the lone op one. And in this case, this gives you a refund on battle focus on a 3+ when you're using agile maneuvers, and they have the CP refund. So a little bit less strong, but again, you can use them to join Swooping Hawks. We'll talk about them soon. And this one can join Hawks and Spiders. Makes sense. Eldrad is amazing. Depending on the points in your list, he feels like an auto take now because now he is the one that gives you a CP each and every single turn. And he's also carrying around Doom. This is debuffing an enemy unit, giving you +1 to wound against them. They have to be within 18, they have to be visible. So I'm looking at joining him to a unit of Guardian, probably Defenders, maybe Storm. Or if you want to really cheap out, you can do a Warlock Conclave and sit on the back objective debuffing units. Warlock Conclave, I say cheap out because you can run them in pretty small squads. So that seems okay. I just worry about indirect, whereas this is more bodies to kind of just weather. So honestly, I'm going to be hard-pressed to not take him even in Harley Quinn armies. A Sermon, huge glow up. He's got this amazing gun, the Bloody Twin, strength 6 attacks, 2, 5, 1, and 2. And then in melee, 6, 2, 6, 3, 3 with Devastating. Can join Dire Avengers, obviously. And he gives you a reactive move. After you shoot with your unit, it's a 6-inch move. It's a normal move. You can get in transports. You just can't charge. Oh, amazing. And of course, the Hand of Assyrian. Once per battle, you can supercharge his gun, which gives it a damage of 3, anti-infantry 3, and devastating. They just built the combo in there for you. You are doing 3 damage devastating wounds against infantry on 3s. And don't forget, you have the Aspect Warrior token on the Dire Avenger squad, so you can just auto 6 one of these out, 2 of them if you're running the big brick at 10. Oh, it's so good. So he's a very spicy boy. I love his sermon. Barry, fallen from the days of old. I'll just say this now. Swooping Hawks don't uppy downy anymore. So much worse. I think he makes them more playable because he grants you the close deep strike. It says 3 here. It's going to be 6. We all know that. And then on the turn he comes down, he and only he gets automatic crits on hits, which of course is meant for his weapon, which has lethal hits. So it's 4 shots, automatically wounding when he comes down, strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage, and he fights decently in melee. I think he's okay. I would put him in like the 2nd tier of Phoenix Lords personally. And again, he does make Swooping Hawks more playable than they would be otherwise. That's Barry. Boygan, new stylish boy. I think he is good, but I personally think I will run my Fire Dragons without him more often than not. Fire Dragons, again for context, now have the Eradicator rule. So they reroll all failed hits, wounds, and damage against monsters and vehicles. Huge buff. Originally, he gave them +1 to hit, which you needed. Phoenix Lords no longer do that, so what does he bring to the table? Well, he does still have his awesome wild melee. He's got his Searsong Lance that is melt to 6. That's all fine in Deity. He gives +6-inch range to the melt weapons in his squad, which is genuinely good. And he does get back up on a 2+. The problem is it's a big investment for a unit that's probably still just gonna die after they've done their job. So I don't hate him, I don't dislike him, but he's probably my 2nd tier of Phoenix Lords here. I think he's better than Barry though, for sure. 2nd tier. Jane Czar, another big glow up in this case. She still has that sweet fight first. And I was such a shame that you never really saw her, unless your name was Brian. And what she does now is she gives your unit an auto advance 6 inches. And don't forget your Banshees are going 8 inches, so they're going 14 inches. You can do a maneuver, so they're going 16 inches automatically. It's amazing. And now when she targets a character unit, she rerolls her wound rolls with anti-infantry, 8 attacks, AP 3, 2 damage. She's awesome. I'm here for it. While we're talking about Banshees, they are a bit different. They don't have as they lost an attack but gained a damage. So they're more like elite killers now. They still don't prevent Overwatch like they used to, which would have been the biggest upgrade, I think. But they're very spicy. So I'm a big fan of Jane Czar. I rate her more highly. So, yeah. I feel like I want to do a whole ranking of these Phoenix Lords in a second. Lycus, prepare for the ridiculousness if you have not already seen it. She is nuts. She leads Warp Spiders, which, by the way, now got better. Don't let people tell you that they got worse, because yes, their flamers, their death spinners no longer have devastating wounds. Oh no, I can't fish for 6s. But they have ignore cover and they have AP1, which by and large is going to be far better than fishing for some 6s on mortal wounds. Who cares about that? They have their flicker jump for 24 inches. It's a little bit worse. It's kind of what it should have always been, frankly. But you can have the Exarch with 10 twin-linked attacks at AP2. There's several different flamethrower profiles because they wanted to make that as complicated as possible. And those are all the different options are just for the Exarch, basically. So all that to say, Warp Spiders are phenomenal. Lycus, she is phenomenal. She allows you to flicker jump and still charge. Now, GW mentioned that when they revealed her, and everyone was already losing their minds. But let me tell you, it's going to be bananas. So they're going 24 inches, potentially 26 with a battle focus token, and then shooting and charging. Oh, what's her shooting do? Okay, D6 plus 3. It's basically a Strength 6. No, it says, yeah, Strength 6 AP2 Warp Spider Flamer, twin linked, and Whispering Web. In your shooting phase, after this model has shot, you select an enemy unit that was just hit. It automatically hits, so that's going to happen. And it allows you until the end of the turn, each time a friendly Aeldari model makes an attack that targets that unit, an unmodified hit roll of 5 scores a critical hit. For the whole army. This works in melee, folks. She has lethal hits. She jumps in there with her 10 attacks. They have lethal. They're auto-wounding on 5s. You got the other guy with the 10 attacks, twin-linked. It's just going bananas. And you're combining this with like shuriken cannons, which are also lethal now. She is wild. Very, very strong, and I'm so excited to get her on the table. I'm looking at a squad of 10, I think. I'm excited. What can I say? Malgan Ra, beautiful model. Still, I think particularly exciting. I feel like they haven't decided what they want to do with him. So 6 attacks, hitting on 2s, 7, AP2 for 2, devastating, ignore cover. Basically, if you target everything on the same squad, you can have kind of exploding mortal wounds around in a bubble. It's cute, and you can force battle shocks. It's cute. I like the dire. Is this a misprint? It's like in the book. I like the Dark Reapers better than him. I actually would look at taking them and just not take Malgan at all. I think he's bottom tier Phoenix Lords. The Dark Reapers themselves, on their Reaper launchers for the big shot, gained 2 strengths, going from strength 8 up to strength 10, and gated damage. So this is a big upgrade for them. They still ignore modifiers. So I'm looking at just taking Dark Reapers, not taking Malgan Ra. Maybe I take an Autarch depending on what benefits I want from it. Fair enough. So that's the Phoenix Lords. Overall, I feel like Lycus, a Sermon, tippity top tier, with Jane Zar just barely behind. Then I would put Fuegan and Beheroth similar, with Malgan Ra just clearly in the bottom. I'm not sure what to do with them. Let me know. Maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, overall, very, very excited for these Phoenix Lords. Moving right along with the Dire Avengers, as we mentioned, they have sustained hits with now 4 shots each. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Not much to say there. Swooping Hawks, we talked about this mostly. They lost Uppy Downy. They now have pseudo grenades, but you can't also grenade in the same phase, which I think is a bit of a miss. And then you can take a scatter laser on the Exarch. Scatter lasers are now sustained hits. They didn't regain their strength 6, which I think would have been probably a better call, and Brian agrees. But they do have sustained, so that's a little better. Points dependent. You might still take them, but they certainly took a hit. I cannot tell you any lies. Fire Dragons, as we mentioned, get full hit, wound, and damage rerolls against monsters and vehicles. They are fantastic. I like little 5s of these. It's going to be so strong. And yeah, they still have the Aspect Shrine tokens, which are going to be very, very scary here. Howling Banshees, also mentioned. They still have the fallback, advance, and charge. And then you can see the new profiles. Only 2 attacks, which sounds scary, but I think it's okay. They're just better against more elite units. And if you're really worried, then you can go ahead and take the Triskel, which is the 6 attacks, and just have like a bit of volume going on there. So highly rate them. The new warp spiders, also mention them. Just take note, there's a few different versions. It's like, oh, do you want your leader to have a strength 5 gun at a longer range, or would you rather have it be twin linked, or would you want like the double blades? With Lycus, I'm definitely doing double blades. For my 5-man, I haven't really decided how I'm going to build them, so let me know. Maybe I won't have built them by the time you guys see this, and you can help me out. Reapers, as I mentioned, nice little upgrade there. Points dependent, I think they're pretty spicy. Shining Spears saw a nice glow up. They have been not amazing. They have the big bases now. They've only been like 90 points, so why don't people take them? Well, frankly, they just don't hit super hard. That is the case no longer. For one, they get in very nicely. You can ignore vertical distance when moving total distance. So basically, this is like kind of old fly. So like you can go up and over buildings and that won't cost you anything extra. So it's kind of like going through them, which is fantastic and very important for these guys. Lets you hide, lets you get behind ruins. And also they've gotten some huge upgrades in terms of their damage. You've got the Laser Lance, which is the regular profile. 3 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 5, AP 2, 3 damage, anti-vehicle, anti-monster 3+, and lance. The fact is, they are, going from strength 4 to strength 5 means they will actually fight decently even on the turns that they didn't charge. And then the leader can take the Star Lance, which will get you an extra AP and an extra attack. Honestly, I think they are very, very spicy, so I'm curious to see what happens with them. Let me know. Again, I think very points dependent, but it'll be cool. Striking Scorpions, I love the changes to them. They are now all about sustained hits. The Mana Blasters is now crits on 5s on a turn in which they charge. So you're running up, crits on 5s, getting rerolls potentially from your Aspect Host, and I think they're going to be much better at skirmishing with small units. The only downside is I personally built my Scorpions recently before we received this book, which meant I built them as the Claw, which I think used to be the correct move. Now I personally like the Biting Blade because it just leans further into the, the Biting Blade. Is it Biting Blade? Yeah, because you get extra AP, extra strength. It leans further into this idea of sustained hits and just kind of skirmishing in the middle. So strength AP3 is nothing to snuff out. So it's cool. Also keep in mind that this confers to the whole unit. So if you put an Autarch into it, they also get that. Love it. Sorry about Karandras. Warlocks. I'm less into the Warlock units right now, but I'm sure there's going to be some cool things we can do. You can attach them to units even if an Autarch or Farseer is attached. You can attach them to Defenders and Guardians. Makes the unit -2 to be charged, which is very cool. And each time they shoot, you get +1 attacks, +1 strength of the destructor weapon for each other Aeldari Psyker model within 6. So you're supercharging this thing, this profile. It's a lot of eggs in one basket, going to be very points dependent. The Conclave, which is the unit version, you can see is 2 to 4 Warlocks, whereas the other one is just 1. Similar, but when a Farseer is leading this unit, -1 to be wounded. So again, if you want to run Eldred by himself, or Eldred with these in the back, just hanging out, being a bit tougher against indirect, that's not bad. And same deal, we're upgrading the destructor weapon for models in there. Then we have the jet bike version, giving ignore cover to the unit. I think very important if you're looking at running Windrunners. Shuriken Cannon still only AP1, so that's important. And then same deal with the Destructor getting bigger. It's cool. They can lead Wind Riders. Guardian Defenders, I think still interesting. Now what they do is you can do the fade back, which I think is the after getting shot one, without spending a battle focus token. Amazing, and you can do it if you've even already done it that phase. So very, very, very important. So I like that. Again, defending the backfield. In Storm Guardians, of course, interesting because they have sticky objectives still. So pretty cool profiles, and you can fit a lot of special weapons in these bad boys. So I think with OC2 on both of them, they're both compelling choices for your Eldar army. Warwalkers. Calm down. They no longer have a 5+, the 4+ in bone is now a 5+. They are no longer -1 to wound. Calm down. It's fine. They, points dependent, I think will be very interesting because they're a little support platform that can shoot well with 2 of these great weapons. And more importantly, they have the crystalline targeting. After they've shot, you select an enemy unit that was hit by 1 or more of their attacks, and it gives your friendly Eldari units +1 AP for the rest of that phase. That's a great buff. That's a great buff. What can I say? I think the points will determine a lot if they're too pricey. If they remain the same price as they are right now, before the Codex, it's dubious. But if they drop in points, I think it's a good utility squad. Wind Riders, you can see the save going down to a 4+ from a 3, as I mentioned earlier. Still getting those sweet rerolls. And you can see Scatter Lasers, Strength 5, Sustained. And you can see Shurikens going from Sustained to Lethal, kind of differentiating the different weapons there. So, it's cool. Brian's a bit down on them. We haven't tested it yet, so I'm curious to see. Let me know. Jetbike folks. The weapons platform, they've now broken them up into 3 different profiles, which on one hand is great because it lets you balance the profiles depending on the guns that they have. The downside is you can take 9 of them again because you can take 3, 3, and 3. So hopefully no one breaks that. The D cannon is a D cannon. Still spooky. This is certainly a unit I don't know super well, so let me know. Rerolling damage of 1 with the D cannon, 4 reroll damage if it's against Titanic. The Shadow Weaver platform is pretty sweet actually because the monofilament snare. Basically, you put the snare on the unit. When the unit moves, you roll a dice for each model in the unit, and on a 1, you take a mortal wound. So very punishing against big units of like GSC or whatever. So that's pretty sick. An indirect is always good. I actually like this profile a lot. I think this one is one of the most compelling. And the Vibro Cannons, classic Vibro Cannons, where they're getting stronger, getting +1 strength, AP, and damage for each other one that targeted the same unit. So it starts pretty fine, to be honest. But this means you can get up to damage 4 and AP 3. That's pretty spicy dicey. And the way this works is now you can join Guardian Defenders when you are setting up, basically. So pretty cool. But you cannot go into transports, so keep that in mind. And that applies to all 3 of the weapon platforms. Rangers, their 5+ invuln save now only works against range attacks. It's a bummer, but kind of makes sense. They gotta have a weakness. Still have the reactive move, which is fantastic. Still have infiltrate, still have stealth. Points dependent, you're still gonna be taking these in every list. And the Shroud Runners, their buffs moved around a little bit. They have what the Viper used to have, and that is when you shoot an enemy unit and you strip them of cover. Very strong. I expect to see these in a number of lists. They have the 5+ invuln against shooting only, and they have Scout and Stealth. And of course the new Scatter Lasers for Sustained 1. So if the Shroud Runners gain the Viper rule, what do Vipers have? Well, they have suppressing fire, basically, giving unit -1 to hit. I like it a lot less. Bums me out because I like Vipers, but on the other hand, it is an old kit, so I understand making it just weaker. That's kind of what this feels like. Unless it's super cheap, then it'll be great. Spirit Seers, as we mentioned, leading units to give +1 to hit, gain Lone Operative next to Wraith Constructs, and then they can give a Wraith Construct unit sustained hits 1, which is genuinely fantastic, and they can heal them. Checks out. They don't join units still, they just give the buffs. Wraith Blades, this is the big sad, of course, going from T7 to T6. I think T7 was a bit much, but again, we'll have to see if they gain anything to combat that. If you take the shields, you will still get a 4+ invulnerable save. We talked about leadership and +1 to hit, and you have fight on death on a 3+, so not too shabby there. The Wraith Guard, same dealio. They're getting the +1 to hit, the extra leadership. They can fall back and shoot, which is great. This is changed, of course, from the reactive shoot, which was very toxic and had to be changed many times. And you still have the Torrent Weapon at AP 3. So very cool to see what y'all come up with for these folks. The list just goes on. These units are ridiculous. The Wraith Knight, which is, officially separated into a Wraith Knight and a Wraith Knight with Ghost Glaive. The Wraith Knight, T12, 2+ save, 18 wounds, the whole shebang. Again, not as familiar with this profile since it's been basically banished from civil society since the start of the edition. These are the rules. Moving through stuff, maybe get battle shocked. Cool. Reroll the number of attacks on your Wraith Cannon or Sun Cannon if you're within half range. That's cool. Yeah, pretty sick. Wraith Knights are fun. And then the Wraith Knight with Ghost Glaive. So this is the melee version. This is being able to move through stuff, and they can kind of point it appropriately as it's fully separated from the Wraith Knight, which is with the guns, which is fantastic. So cool to see. Yeah, there's that one. Moving along, the Wraith Lord is still dumb, so hitting on 4s unless you are close to An Aeldari Psyker. Fated Hero is kind of fun. You pick infantry, monster, mounted, or vehicle because they're the Fated Hero, and they get to reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1 against things that have that keyword, which is cool. 2+ save, 10 wounds. I love this model, so it'll be cool to see on the table. And then the Flyers, who I know absolutely nothing about. We've got the D sites with this profile, AP4. When a enemy unit is within 9 inches of it, you subtract 1 battle shock leadership test. This is cool. I guess you can stack that. Crimson Hunter, okay. +1 to hit against fly, +1 to wound against fly. Yep. Look, they're definitely rules. The Falcon still has its nonsense fire support rule. If you hit an enemy unit in shooting, the unit that got out of the Falcon that turn gets full wound rerolls, even through combat. No other army in the game has this. I thought for sure they would take it away, but lo and behold, here it is. And I think that Falcons and transport's gonna be very important. You saw the Strats will jump back in, so pretty big deal there. And of course, the classic Wave Serpent with the pseudo transhuman. If your strength is higher than their toughness, -1 to be wounded. Holds 12 models as opposed to 6 models. I think, again, going to be very important to some of these builds where you're trying to jump in and out of transports. Rocking right along with the Night Spinner, which is a little bit different. They lost Devastating Wounds. They might have lost a Strength, maybe even an AP. And they still have the slowing effect. So, you know what? We're getting there. Baby steps, baby steps. Still pretty strong. I just think you're going to have other strong options, frankly. The Fire Prism, of course, that loses a lot because of the fact that we don't have the hit and wound rerolls from the Index Detachment. You still have the Crystal Matrix, which gives you 1 of those. And the other change is when you are shooting through another Fire Prism, you only get 1 shot with your big gun. So that's kind of a big bummer. Really turns down the efficacy of the Fire Prism's greatest strength, which is, shooting through other Fire Prisms. So I think that's a bit of a bummer, I'll be honest. I don't think that was super necessary, but here's what they did. Moving along, we've got the Void Reavers, the Corsairs, which still have the reroll hit rolls of 1, full rerolls if the target's on an objective, Scout 7. I would love for these to be points to play. And you have the Corsair Void Scarred. This is kind of the more complicated unit. You select 1 enemy unit, and they're going to get lethal and precision against them. Very situational. They can zero out a damage once per turn against them. They have ignore cover while they have their little bird. It's just a whole mishmash of units. Very cool, but very complicated. And then we get to the units that we talked about. Death Jester, Solitaire, Troop Master, Troops. We've gone through all of this already. Sky Weavers, Void Weavers, Star Weavers. The Vizark, Incarn, you have Rain, Yari Archon, Yari Succubus, Warriors, Witches, Incubi, Reavers, Raiders, Venoms. That's the profiles. Of course, let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if I got anything wrong, and in particular, if there's any changes that I didn't catch, because it's a lot to go through. I'm sure it'll happen. So with Crusade, I like to just show the pages because I know there's a big Crusade community out there that just wants to start playing this as soon as possible. So give you a sense for what it looks like here. Destined Device, Rising Nemesis, Humble Beginnings, Enemy of My Enemy. These are cool. They also kind of match like the lore pages that they have in the rest of the book, which is pretty sweet. Cleanse the Corruption, Isha's Bounty. Very cool look. The Aeldari Paths. Oh, that's so cool. Oh, you can do the different paths. Paths of the Warrior, the Seer, Path of Command. Do they have the Path of the Exile? No, they don't. What the heck? Agendas. So sick. Requisitions. Spiritual Necromancy. Oh my god. The battle traits, of course. Desperate Protectors, Guardian. So these are upgrades for the specific units, which makes a lot of sense. Crusade Relics. The Rune of Falchu. Any classics that made their way in here? Mask of Secrets is a classic. Raiment of the Laughing God is a classic. That's cool. Crusade badges. And of course, the all-important name generators. We're going to do this live on stream, so join us for that. And go ahead and generate your own name. Let me know in the comments below. What's your Aeldari name? These are points, but again, remember, points are never valid. By the time this will be out, I'm sure GW will have released the actual points. They'll be updated. This is just if you're playing in a cave, you don't have internet, you can at least play with something. But don't jump to any conclusions based off of this, please, please. That's the Eldar. Oh, I feel like we just went on a journey together, everybody. I am very, very excited for this book. I know Brian is as well. He's under the weather, which is why I'm here. Sorry. But we are so pumped. We are going to be playing later today on the release of this video. It's going to be Eldar versus Space Marines. We'll do Quinns soon, maybe Quinns versus Eldari. There's so much to dig into. I am incredibly pumped for this book and excited to be playing Eldar once again. Of course, let me know in the comments below what you thought about this video, what your thoughts are on the new book, and what you're looking forward to seeing soon on the channel. That's going to do it for me, folks. I'll catch you next time on the tabletop. Bye!